Gentle Dad, I whispered, my voice trembling like the soft rustle of wind through a door's crack. My throat constricted, and each word emerged with difficulty, as if I were struggling to contain a flood of emotions. My heart raced in my chest, threatening to burst, while my hands instinctively clutched the blanket. My breathing became uneven and ragged, and every small sound in the stillness of the room made my heart leap, terrified that my secret would be revealed. Hello, everyone. I'm Samina Zulfikar. Today, I want to share my story, a tale I once believed I would keep buried forever, never to speak of again. The painful truth is that I am the one to blame in this narrative. It's a story that seems so implausible, something you'd expect to see in a film, yet it unfolded in my real life. No matter how hard I try to forget, the memories are etched in my mind, haunting me daily. I fear I will never be able to amend my mistakes or find peace with the person I have deeply hurt. The wounds I inflicted were not just emotional, they shattered trust. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't erase my actions. I am a young woman living with my parents in the charming town of Malir by the Karachi, Pakistan, a place that feels like poetry. My father, Hafiz, owns a well-known seafood restaurant in the area. He takes great care of himself and enjoys working out, so even at nearly 50, he looks much younger, with a strong, toned physique. He is decisive and strong, yet always gentle with me. My mother, Sarah, is a literature teacher at the nearby high school. She is nurturing and delicate, with a deep love for classical literature. Every night, she sits by the window, reading under the warm glow of a lamp, offering me wisdom and affection. My mother taught me how to live sincerely and emotionally. From childhood to adulthood, I have been enveloped in the love of both my parents, who devoted their hearts to caring for and protecting me. As a little girl, I would rush to my father when he came home from work, throwing my arms around his neck and hugging him tightly. In his embrace, I always felt safe, as if everything would be all right. I didn't think much of it. I simply felt loved. I was a free-spirited girl who adored beautiful things, often choosing the most stunning dresses for myself. Each time I would run to my parents, spin around, and wait for their compliments, which always filled me with joy. My parents would smile, their eyes shining with pride, making me feel like the happiest girl in the world. After family dinners, I had a habit of sitting on my father's lap while we watched TV. His hugs were warm and comforting, and I grew so accustomed to that affection that it became a hard habit to break. Even as I grew older, I still found solace in sitting on his lap, as if I were still that little girl in need of protection. That habit was a bond, a small joy I never wanted to lose. But recently, every time I sat on my father's lap or ran to hug him, the feeling changed. There was something different in his reaction that I couldn't ignore. He no longer accepted my hugs as naturally as before. Instead, there was a pause. Sometimes his arms tightened a little more than usual. The way he looked at me was also different, no longer just the gentle warmth of a father's love. At times, I could sense confusion in his eyes, as if he were hiding something I couldn't grasp. In those moments, my heart raced, my intuition warning me that something was wrong. But I didn't want to believe it. Perhaps I was overthinking it. Maybe it was just a fleeting feeling. Yet this unease lingered, making me feel that things were no longer as simple as they once were. As I mentioned, my father enjoys exercising, so despite his age, he maintains a strong and stylish physique, reminiscent of his youth. He is not just a father, but also a model of strength and charm that I have always admired. When I look at him, I can't deny that he is still very handsome, with broad shoulders and a toned body. Every time he walks by, I feel a strange fondness for him, a feeling I can't quite define. Perhaps it's the confidence he exudes, or the strong presence that reminds me of my childhood when he was my entire world. But lately that feeling has shifted. It's no longer just admiration from a daughter to her father, but something more vague and indescribable. I found myself looking at him longer than usual, and whenever I was near him, an unfamiliar stirring within me began to grow. One afternoon, as I returned home from school, I found my father already there, as he often was. He sat on the sofa, engrossed in the television. Without a second thought, I ran to him, jumping onto his lap as I had done countless times before. He embraced me warmly, but this time the atmosphere felt altered, making me uneasy. I tried to dismiss the feeling, convincing myself it was merely my imagination. However, it wasn't just a fleeting sensation. I soon realized something was pressing against me as I sat on his lap. Initially, I attempted to ignore it, attributing it to an awkward position or perhaps something in his pocket. But as time passed, it became undeniable, a presence I could no longer overlook. My heart raced, and the air felt thick and heavy. I felt awkward, unsure of how to react. The closeness that once brought me comfort now felt suffocating. I remained still, trying to maintain my composure, but questions swirled in my mind. My father's eyes mirrored my confusion, and we sat in silence until my mother unexpectedly walked in, shattering the tension. I wanted to stand, but it felt as if my legs were rooted to the ground. My father remained silent, his gaze lingering on me, and I could no longer see the familiar warmth in his eyes. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the door opening. My mother entered, breaking the heavy silence. We both quickly averted our eyes, and I stood up, attempting to act as if nothing was amiss. But the strange feeling weighed heavily on my heart, a reminder that things had irrevocably changed. Although everything appeared normal, I sensed the shift. My father began to show more interest in my life, asking about my day and noticing details he had previously overlooked. He started buying me gifts, new clothes and items I hadn't requested. At first I was confused, but gradually I recognized that this attention felt different, no longer purely paternal. Then came the day when the line between us was irrevocably crossed, a moment forever etched in my memory. My mother had to leave for a business trip, leaving just my father and me at home. I returned from school to find an unexpected scene: a beautifully set dinner on the table, complete with candlelight and 2 bottles of red wine. I was taken aback, my eyes widening in surprise. "What's the occasion?" I asked, laughing, unaware of the deeper implications. My father smiled, explaining that he had received good news at the restaurant and wanted to celebrate. I felt a rush of happiness, not questioning anything further, eager to enjoy this special dinner with him. We sat together, sharing a meal and reminiscing about my childhood, laughter filling the room as we recalled sweet memories. The atmosphere felt intimate, and as the wine flowed, I began to feel lightheaded, the alcohol blurring my inhibitions. In a moment of vulnerability, I asked, "Do you like me?" My voice was soft, carrying a weight that transcended the innocence of a daughter's question. He paused, his gaze penetrating, as if he were searching my soul. "Yes," he replied, a single word laden with unspoken meaning. In that instant, the air between us thickened, transforming our bond into something entirely different. I don't know what compelled me, whether it was the wine or the emotions that had been building, but I reached out and embraced him. A strange sensation coursed through me, yet I didn't pull away. My father hesitated for a moment before reciprocating, his arms tightening around me. The distance that once existed vanished, and we locked eyes, understanding each other's unspoken thoughts. Our lips met tentatively at first, but the kiss quickly deepened, fueled by a longing that had been suppressed for far too long. As the night unfolded, our embraces grew more fervent, each touch igniting a fire within us. My father's hands explored my body, tracing every curve, every breath. The initial tenderness morphed into a passionate urgency, as if he were desperate to memorize every inch of me. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me to the dimly lit bedroom, where the world outside ceased to exist. In that moment, we were lost to everything but each other, surrendering to a connection that defied all boundaries. The next morning, when my mother returned, the facade of normalcy shattered. We acted as if nothing had transpired, but the weight of our secret loomed over us. My mother sensed the change, and soon after, she filed for divorce, leaving our family in ruins. The house felt cold and empty, a stark contrast to the warmth it once held. I was caught in a whirlwind of confusion, torn between my father and mother, unsure of where to turn. I realized that my actions had led to irreversible consequences. The love that once bound us was now a source of pain and betrayal. My father, who had been my protector, had become the catalyst for my family's destruction. My mother, who had nurtured me with unconditional love, was now a figure of hurt and disappointment. Days turned into weeks, and the silence in our home was deafening. My mother avoided me, her heart shattered, while my father and I exchanged glances filled with unspoken guilt. The weight of our secret hung heavily in the air, suffocating any remnants of the family we once were. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of regret, unsure of how to navigate the wreckage of my life. I understood that my choices had consequences that extended far beyond myself. The love I had sought had turned into a nightmare, leaving scars that would never heal. I was left to grapple with the reality that I had not only hurt my parents, but had also betrayed the very essence of our family bond. As I reflected on my actions, I realized the importance of boundaries in relationships, especially within a family. The lines that had been crossed could never be redrawn, and the trust that had been shattered would take a lifetime to mend, if it could be mended at all. I had learned a painful lesson about the fragility of love and the devastating impact of our choices. Now, I stand at a crossroads, uncertain of my future. I must confront the consequences of my actions and seek a path toward healing, not just for myself, but for my parents as well. I know that forgiveness may never come, but I must strive to find a way to live with the pain I have caused and learn from the mistakes that have forever altered the course of my life. To anyone listening to my story, I urge you to cherish the bonds of family and to respect the boundaries that keep those relationships healthy. Love can be a powerful force, but it can also lead us down dark paths if we are not careful. Remember that every action has consequences, and sometimes the choices we make can haunt us for a lifetime. Thank you for listening, and I hope my story serves as a cautionary tale for others.